Hi, my name's Bill Vaughan with National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, and I guess I'm supposed to try to help spark plug this discussion, but I think you provided plenty of material to spark plug it. Maybe sort of my own long question then. The National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, how the heck do you do that with 10,000 people a day joining what can smell a little bit like a Ponzi scheme? I mean, how do you save Medicare? And there's a lot of solutions, but most of them are pretty bad. And so we look at evidence-based medicine, quit paying for stuff that doesn't work or stuff that hurts people as one of the least painful solutions. But then I put on another hat, and I'm a SHIP counselor, State Health Insurance Program counselor in Fairfax County, one of the nation's richest and best educated counties. And I got to tell you, the average consumer, I think you used the term average consumer, doesn't know Part A from Part B from Part, and this is insurance. This isn't where's my spleen or what's wrong with it. Just the simple stuff in health insurance, the average consumer is totally out of their league. So how do we get people to understand science? It's a scary term for a lot of us who half-failed high school biology. How do we deal with them? And you look at the Medicare Part D program. I don't think consumerism works very well. The average consumer, if they made the best economic choice each year of picking the drugs that they need, would save about $400 a year. They don't. Once they go through this ordeal of picking a Part D plan, they stay there. They're like deer in the headlights. I mean, what do you get? Change in the open enrollment season, 13% of people change at best. So to rely on consumerism is perhaps a weak read, and that's where National Committee to Preserve has a PAC, and it's politically oriented. We need national legislation, or we need insurers to give us the backbone that we as consumers have trouble using. Every time I take my car in and the auto mechanic says, yeah, you need new brake lining, I think I'm being cheated. I think I'm, but dang, I got a new grandbaby in the back, so I get the brake lining. If my doc tells me to do something, I tend to do it. So I need help saying, why are we doing this? And I'm going to get in a thin area here now because Mr. Kungo, Terry may disagree with me, but let's take PSA, prostate exams for just a minute. The evidence base for a very long time, has been that guys my age shouldn't be PSA'd. Because if we come out positive, it almost always triggers a series of things that if, again, the result is positive, I have a very strong chance of pooping and peeing in my pants the rest of my life, and certainly no more sex, which would be disappointing. And so at age 70 and over, the recommendation of the U.S. Preventive Care Task Force is don't screen guys for PSA. There's obvious exceptions if you got close brothers and all that sort of stuff. But basically, don't bother. I'm going to die of other things before prostate kills me. That's the evidence base, and that's the recommendations. And Medicare, as I read the regs, they'll pay once a year for PSA, no question of age, and they don't talk about the need to talk, patient-centered. There's no requirement that you got to talk to the guy about why you're doing this. Last month's Health Affairs, 49.8% of us over 75, not 70, over 75 are getting PSA tests when we go into the doc. I'm not sure I believe all those numbers, but guys over 75 are being pushed this. Medicare doesn't ask questions about it. Does Blue Cross Blue Shield, do you pay the bills if somebody? So, I'm putting you on the spot a very specific one question. I didn't mean to do that.
No, I'm fine. I think you've given a lot there. Let me tell you where we believe we're headed. It's the reason why I mentioned precision medicine, personalized healthcare, is because that's where we think we're headed. And so some of us more recently, we are supporting the wisdom study that came out of PCORI. And for those that aren't familiar with it, it's an approach to be able to see whether or not we can transition to personalized breast cancer screening. So this debate about annual versus biennial mammographies, we think could maybe, instead of continuing to litigate that, since it continues to go on decades, at this point, to say, well, would we be able to offer a personalized approach to breast cancer screening? And if we offer that approach to personalized breast cancer screening, would women avail themselves of it, right? And the reason why we want to test that second component is because given the success, and I put that in quotes for some, with the approach by which we've gotten American women accustomed to annual mammography, there's a concern or maybe fear for some women that I may not want to undergo this personalized approach if it's going to suggest to me that I don't no longer need an annual approach. We think the same may hold true with prostate specific antigen PSA testing for prostate cancer. And so we believe that right shortly, if we're able to prove success with the adoption of personalized breast cancer screening, we do believe where we're headed pretty shortly on the heels of that is the prostate specific antigen testing for men.
That sounds great. That sounds really, really cool. But, well, the budget last year that Congress, the House passed is wants another $500 billion out of Medicare in the next 10 years. It's what you're talking about sounds like what you see in your talk. You talked over the next decade. How do we do things faster? Because Medicare is facing some serious, serious problems, and the other alternatives are really terrible and transferring costs to individuals, many of whom are poor. How do we move faster in this evidence-based world? Are you going to keep paying for something that the U.S. Preventive Task Force says doesn't make sense for guys over 70 when 75-year-olds are getting it? And again, I'm not putting you on the spot, but why in the hell is Medicare doing this and not saying you got to have a patient-centered discussion and tell the guy what the very high odds are of adverse effects if he shows up positive? I mean, and how do we as Q or Q members get more urgency in this and make this some national solutions, whether it's legislative or whether it's, I don't know what. That would be a good question to put to the crowd. And let me shut up.